it's an important thing for most people that meditate and practice. And it's this notion of awakening and enlightenment. And from my understanding in Theravada Buddhism, the way they explain awakening and enlightenment is the four path model, right? And you have these four stages: stream enterer, once returner, anagami, and arahant. And at every one of those four stages, there's certain fetters or aspects of perception that are broken. And when you're at the final stage of arahant, all 10 fetters are essentially dismantled. And from their perspective, it's at this point that somebody is considered enlightened. And this is like a very systemic, almost linear seeming path that it's been very popular in pragmatic Dharma communities. It's been somewhat appealing to me at least at certain points, because it was like, oh, this is the path. Like, this is what it means.
Oh yeah, I totally get the appeal.
Yeah.
And it's great to have a very clear, precise path, to have this method and then that method, and what you will get at the end of this is that, and then you're ready to go on to the next one. So there's a clarity and precision in the step-by-step methodology. I think the clarity and precision in Vajrayana comes at the end. It's like the method itself is pretty nebulous. It can be really confusing. It can be disorienting. You can feel like you're kind of all over the place. There's not enough precision. You want to be able to tick a box, and it's kind of flipping everything. And then boom, you have an experience of like absolute, clear, vivid, precise, sharp presence, and suddenly it all makes sense. So you have much more of that kind of spontaneous experience. That Vajrayana is characterized by spontaneity from some perspectives.
Yeah. So
So is
Vajrayana, from the Vajrayana perspective, I mean, I know this is how Zen is, right? Like in Zen, they don't like really talk about anything. It's just super cryptic. It's like, what is emptiness? Like, emptiness is, you got to find out for yourself. What is awakening? Like, they kind of don't talk about any of these things, but it does seem like also from the Vajrayana perspective, like this nebulosity, there's this confusion, there's this not knowing of what's happening till that moment of realization occurs. So is that kind of how they talk about, or don't even talk about, enlightenment or awakening? Or I'm just wondering how their approach to understanding it is different, or even how you understand or think about or talk about, or like, how do you approach that?
Well, I think the way that I would describe the endpoint is not going to be the same as you would necessarily find in different highly traditional contexts. So I want to preempt what I say with that. You'll still find people in a traditional context talking about an enlightened state, an enlightened being, and there's, even if not in the literature, there's a sense of there being a fixed end point that you get to. There's like the enlightened state, and it's that, and you've made it. So I try not to do that. I think if you understand that your practice is always resulting in activity, in relationship, in being in the world, then by definition, the experience of the non-ordinary being in the world is going to be differentiated by context. It's going to not be the same all the time. And that's one of the key differences that I would point to in my what I have experienced as a result of meditation, result of practice. So that clarity that comes as a result, it's clarity and precision because you're heading towards presence in form, presence in stuff, in the nitty-gritty of experience, in the differentness of each circumstance. And the nebulosity is because you're bringing that spacious base, that understanding of emptiness, you're bringing that into circumstances. So everything's going to be thrown up and thrown around. You're not heading towards this sameness of experience that's the same for everybody, no matter who you are, where you are, what your circumstances have been. That's much more of a Mahayana or a Sutric perspective.
Yeah, so from the Vajrayana perspective, there isn't really like a one thing that's awakening or enlightenment. It's however it manifests is going to be very different, and that unique aspect of your being or your personality or how you manifest, like that's kind of emphasized. Whereas
personality is important in Buddhist Tantra, and the state that people talk about as being the result, generally, very generally in Vajrayana, is Rigpa. And that state it's not the same as emptiness. It's not the same as the empty experience. It's both empty and full. You know, as soon as people start talking about Rigpa, you start having paradox and sentences that sound a little cryptic, like that Zen way of describing things, because it is including emptiness, including nebulosity, but it's also not detached and distinct from form, from activity, from experience. So you have both emptiness of activity, spaciousness in all activity. The path of Buddhist Tantra is particularly related to emotional experience. And so you're transforming your experience of emotions such that there's simply a sensation in the body that is liberated, free, not trapped in this kind of cycle of narrative.